we have all in the team been looking forward to this for the last 3 years. And actually, we don't get a lot of chances, and every once in a while there's a revolution happening in product development and in the development of the systems, such as the ones that were discussed today throughout the discussion. And what was very interesting in these discussions was that none of the most progressive shifts cannot be achieved alone by a single company. And this is where the principles such as inclusiveness is highly important, and also neutrality when we build open standards and also open source software. And every once in a while, we are kind of in a position where we can deliver something as great as the things that we are going to be unveiling in the following sections. And we were kind of fortunate enough to launch several of game-changing products that promise to shape the industry and also bring more transparency, trust, and sustainability to supply chains together with our partners that you have also met today and some others. And going back to why we are doing it, this is highly important. And we don't need to go beyond 2020. And already 2019, the end of 2019 was very much indicative as to how poorly sustainable supply chains are. And we have seen that what we have caused as a human race resulted in some of the most widespread fires that you can see here on the photo in Brazil and also in Australia. So this is kind of the introduction to the year 2020, which for many of you was not the most pleasant one, or at least it was full of surprises. And this is one of the results of the poor supply chain management overall on a global scale. Secondly, and this is something that we all still feel very much, is the COVID crisis, and not just the outbreak of the disease. And it's very difficult to pinpoint who was to blame. Is it China, or is it America, or is it something in between? It's something that we're not going to be discussing today. What we are going to be discussing today is how the responses that took place after the COVID disease spread, how the responses actually unveiled some critical some critical shortcomings of global supply chains. More specifically, when it came to the supplies of the critical essential equipment to treat or to prevent the spread of this disease. And this is one of the examples, again, which shown how critically bad we are at managing global supply chains. And last but not least, this year and also previous years have shown how personally identifiable data has been mistreated, mismanaged, how we as consumers, instead of being prosumers, those who can actually be able to seize control over the data and actually gain benefits, or at least be protected from manipulation, actually we as individuals are not able to take control over our own fates. It's actually decentralized. We call them elites. You might call them whatever you want, but this is again one phase of the global supply chains as well. So it's very much kind of packed into what we have identified as the main problems that are also propelling our purpose. And our purpose as OriginTrail for 10 years has always been to increase transparency and trust in supply chains. And when you aim to improve sustainability in supply chains, and supply chains is essentially, it describes movements of physical goods, and we could as well describe movement of supply of physical goods in terms of the movement of data, and more so in the movement of knowledge created along these supply chains. And this is why we believe that the best and the most proper response to tackle supply chain sustainability shortcomings is to allow people and organizations to benefit from trusted knowledge exchange. And it's not only organizations, it's also people. We need to undertake the human-centric approach here. And we have actually come a very long way in developing this product and later on ecosystem. We started off as a college dropouts, essentially helping supply chains, local beef producers to differentiate themselves from competition. And although this was a very rudimentary project, the mission remained the same. Perhaps we had less style for, or less taste for hairstyle, but the mission was very much well placed. And the mission remained the same throughout several transformations. First one into when we actually launched the company and we actually delivered the first solution, which, what is interesting, was very much based on one very much important standard that also Phil was mentioned, the EN code. And the solution itself, based on this GS1 standards, was kind of critically supported by this standard to an extent that it actually was the key decision trigger for the company that hired us, and also enabled kind of the first proof of concept or even the proof of market solution to be delivered back then. So GS1 standards, again, already back in 2013, it has proven to be the most critical point already at the inception of the solution. Now, going forward, we have figured out that OriginTrail cannot address supply chain opaqueness by itself. We need to become more inclusive. We need to become more open. And this is where this is when in 2016, when we kind of achieved that critical point, we started designing the system, which was initially called First Purpose Built Protocol for Supply Chains based on blockchain. And what was crucial here was that we utilized both open standards, and at the same time, we were building something that involved more stakeholders. So not only from the standardization perspective, but also the system itself was able to support more players because it was based on decentralized technologies. And being based on decentralized technologies nowadays means that we are being powered by 750 plus nodes globally, that we have over 8 million total graph size, 8 million plus actually, which actually total graph size describes what's the overall size of the knowledge in the OriginTrail decentralized network. And last but not least, with this integrity, which is kind of the first I in 3 I's that we're describing here, namely integrity, interconnectivity, and interoperability. The last point here with integrity is that we also have quite a lot of nodes being committed towards ensuring that we have integrity maintained at all times. What is critical and was also mentioned at several points is that there is no inclusiveness without taking into consideration open standards or global standards such as GS1 and W3C. And if you meet anyone trying to deliver a solution or trying to implement a solution without relying first and foremost on, for example, GS1 or W3C standards, then most likely he or she will be very much unable to deliver a final solution. And GS1 standards, again, one of the examples here, EPCI GS1 standard allows companies essentially to describe what has transpired in the supply chain. So essentially construct a story from data up until knowledge, like a kind of a book of what has transpired in a supply chain of a particular product. Which also brings us to interconnectivity. So when we're trying to explain what interconnectivity means, we're most often relying on the data information knowledge wisdom model, which help us explain that information is always comprised of data. So there are always relations between certain data points. And this is where the property of linked data, which is also one of the most crucial principles within OriginTrail, is the most important principle. And not stopping here, information needs to be furthermore connected to knowledge through openness and through additional capabilities to create knowledge, such as decentralized knowledge graph. And at the end of the day, companies using OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph are able to behave more wisely. And behaving more wisely in supply chains is critical because it contributes to sustainability, it contributes to efficiency, trust, transparency, etc. Now, as you were able to see, OriginTrail versatility is a very important thing here. Although we started off as a solution that was helped food suppliers to improve transparency, to improve trust. One of the cool properties of OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph is that it is essentially industry agnostic. And what you have heard from Dan and Yuri is BSI is using OriginTrail for assurance and compliance. So this is just one of the examples. The Swiss Federal Railways are using OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph for supply chain transparency. And even right now, with the unveilment of the next product, actually part of the next epoch, we are going to be able to use OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph as individuals to essentially improve personal data management, and or as a supplier, or as someone who's treating our data, so someone to whom we are giving our data to better manage our personal data, and on and on. There are several other solutions which you can tap into at our website. Now, how does OriginTrail position vis-a-vis other solutions? Now, this is not a competition matrix. We're not competing against the companies or against the ecosystems or solutions that we're showing here. It is important to note that blockchain has always been portrayed as a silver bullet for improving transparency and trust in supply chains. And although cases such as Ethereum and Bitcoin are the most permissioned and the most decentralized systems, it is almost impossible to build anything of value on it without additional layers for supply chains. And we have seen additional attempts to perhaps improve the properties of the most permissionless ecosystems, but we have merely seen that they have moved towards being slightly more useful for enterprise sector, but they have lost the permissionless nature, they have lost the decentralized nature of their solutions, and at the same time, they're not able to deliver the property of linked data and move perhaps higher towards being a solution that is capable of creating actionable knowledge for enterprise sector. Now, we have seen also solutions that are capable of higher scalability when it comes to exchanging data or storing data. That's perhaps a better word for it. And Filecoin is a cool solution, which is essentially a decentralized Dropbox. You can store your files there, photos, or whatever. But at the end of the day, you're not able to construct actionable knowledge for you as an individual or for you as someone who is responsible over a sector in an enterprise. Now, looking more towards centralized solutions, we have seen some very promising developments with IBM blockchain and Quorum blockchain. And this is where things get tricky. If you do not interoperate with permissionless systems, you again gain this opaqueness and power centralization. And although these solutions are moving up because in terms of the ability for knowledge creation, because they do offer some interoperability features, it is impossible to make them more trustworthy than perhaps the solutions on the right side. And this is where OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph comes in as a very, very useful open source solution, which can help even those solutions mentioned here to gain more properties of permissionless systems, and at the same time to gain properties of linked data. And properties of linked data and the properties of permissionlessness are essential for the leapfrog from the situation where we found ourselves. So more power-centered solutions or decentralized solutions which are not capable of delivering actionable knowledge insights. Now, the current landscape, of course, is also being complemented by the likes of Google and Facebook. And this is where it is very important to point out that we oftentimes call OriginTrail as a Google for supply chains. Now, when we say OriginTrail is a Google for supply chains, what we are referring to is the knowledge graph property that also both Google and Facebook are using. But the problem with Google and Facebook is that, again, they are power-centered. They are not democratized, and whatever they do with our data, it's being done for private enterprises. It's being done for the sake of creating profit in a more centralized manner. And essentially, this brings us to a point of data economy, which is becoming flawed. And the next step in the evolution of OriginTrail decentralized knowledge economy is to bring more ability for individuals and companies to be able to co-create environment where data is being not only created, but where we have this element of incentivization also for individuals to gain power over their data and to essentially manage data based on the properties of human centrism and based on the property of privacy by design. And this is where Tomaž is going to take you through not only just one tool that is being created within this OriginTrail knowledge graph economy epoch, but actually 4 tools, and then Branimir is going to talk about the implications for the utility itself. All right, let me mute.
Yeah. Hi, everyone, and good evening, or good morning, and good afternoon to wherever in the world you might be. Thanks for Žiga for making the intro. Thanks for the speakers before, and of course, thanks to Slovenian government for allowing the barber salons to be open and a little bit fresher cut than from the pictures in the beginning. Yeah, so going back to data economy, we've seen what the challenges are. It's been greatly portrayed, and you've also been able to catch a couple of the things that Žiga was mentioning around how it's about extending the thinking that we might have from just a, let's say, solely enterprise focus towards more understanding of how really these principles that OriginTrail ecosystem has enshrined and is being utilizing and is leveraging, how can we really make them as usable, as inclusive, as amplified as possible in this upcoming OriginTrail knowledge economy that we're introducing here today. And what we're going over in the next couple of slides are really some of the things that we're very excited about to be able to share today. And we're hoping to also not only seeing them as a novel thing that's being introduced, but rather as an extension of so many of the things that have been done before, or the foundation that we've been working on so far, and it kind of like a stream that's flowing from what was described just now and what you've been also hearing previously, and how this really extends into an even larger river, if you will. So what we're talking about here is we're shifting a paradigm, right? So it's something that, introducing so many new concepts, values into something that seems quite filled up with incumbents even of like the likes of Facebooks and Googles that Žiga was speaking about. But what we can look at is also how have the paradigm shifts happened previously, and what are the lessons that we can really take from that, or what are the similarities that we're seeing. And sharing economy really offers itself as a great example, and Airbnb, obviously the talk of the last couple of weeks as well. It's quite a good thing that we can take as a tool to framework our thinking about how can we stage a paradigm shift. And when we're thinking about a sharing economy, what's the great thing that they were able to achieve was that there were just so many dormant, so many unused, fragmented assets, physical assets, houses, apartments all over the globe that were underused in sense of especially monetization, right? So they were dormant assets. They weren't really being put to the full potential of the usage that they can be, especially in the light of a service like Airbnb is. But with this type of service arriving, all of a sudden we have the capability of someone having a house in Ljubljana or in Germany or US or Hong Kong, or in a rural part of some, I don't know which country, but you can still kind of utilize this service to really monetize it. And it's very inclusive in that sense, because it is allowing a much larger group of individuals, even not only just companies, to take part into an economy which was before reserved for some incumbent players. And what we want to do here is really take this type of approach and take it to knowledge assets. So we were talking before about what data is and how that becomes information, how it becomes knowledge. So how can we take that knowledge and how can we build around that concept a knowledge sharing economy? So some of the things that, and you can see here the 3 I's that we were talking about before. So we have integrity at the top. Obviously, it's a key pillar, and it's something that sharing economy has been leveraging with different types of reputation systems as well. Interoperability. So we are enabling these different knowledge assets to be able to interoperate between each other. We're putting them on a common denominator, very much similar to what a sharing economy would do with having physical assets distributed across the globe and keep making them at a common denominator. Interconnectivity, having an integrated service, how important is that? And it's similar with the knowledge assets. Once we are able to connect these assets together, make them discoverable, so you can actually find them, then it's something where we're creating that type of foundation for the knowledge sharing economy to be able to exist. And of course, as you maybe have seen on the initial slide, but also here, the 4th I is joining the party. So we're really warmly welcoming incentivization. The 4th I is here. Again, it's not just the lesson from the paradigm shifts of the future, of the past, but it's also what are the key drivers that can enable this type of inclusivity, that can bring much more stakeholders in the OriginTrail ecosystem, because it will also provide rewards for them doing so. So basically, the thought process around here is really how can we take the foundation we have here and include as much different individuals, organizations, small, big, everyone to be able to take part in this knowledge economy and create appropriate incentivization mechanisms so that the entire network and the entire ecosystem together is even stronger. Without further ado, let's look at a couple of the knowledge incentivization tools that we'll be unveiling right now. And we're going to start with the knowledge tokens. So here, let's start with just the importance of accessibility when we're talking about OriginTrail and OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph. We've always been focusing on how can you really make this data permissioning and data access as easy as possible, as precise as possible, and really to align it with the needs that were there. What we're doing with knowledge tokens is really taking that a step forward, because with the tokens, we're extending that type of accessibility to a digital asset, which can be either fungible, it can be non-fungible. It allows you to create a subset of economy around the knowledge that you create. So you, in this case, either an enterprise can create a different knowledge, which can be offered, access to that knowledge can be offered through such tokens. Even individuals could create a knowledge which might be interesting for someone on the other side of the marketplace to purchase this type of access to the token. And of course, by having it being a digital asset, it allows you also to create a lot of different subset of economies, mechanisms in that you can even increase the value that's being created by such token. Moving from the token, we're going towards the knowledge wallet. So here we're really looking at, we were talking about the OpenPKG. How can you utilize a wallet to have better access to your personal data? How can I use my keys? How can I have my sovereignty? The SSI, the self-sovereign identity framework, such importance here. So how can I use these principles? How can I use this tool to turn it into a knowledge wallet, where I can really keep the ownership of what my knowledge is either in the form of my private keys because I'm signing something, either in the form of a token because I'm holding that asset and I have access to certain knowledge by default with it. But I have my knowledge wallet, in which is my keys on a device that I see fit to hold it in, and I'm the one that's in control of what's happening with that data, regardless of how I was obtaining it. So these two are a great fit for something like a knowledge marketplace, right? This, of course, a lot of components that we've been working on and you've been following throughout the months that passed were with the next generation internet. So, food data marketplace, laboratory data marketplace, a lot of very required components that were built out there that for something that is becoming the knowledge marketplace. Because it's extended also by all the incentivization tools that are available. And we're not only talking about data anymore, but we're talking about knowledge. So this is something where we can make stuff much more discoverable, much more exchangeable, monetizable, and much more inclusive for all the different stakeholders to be able to join in. And then another very, very interesting and very powerful concept that knowledge unlocks is to create knowledge tenders. So we've just concluded this week even a phase of the trusted repository for COVID-19 essential supplies. And we've seen our community with a knowledge tender, which was manually created. We've asked them to, if they can find in an open data format a lot of interesting information or valuable information about essential supplies for COVID-19 and provide them in a knowledge form. And we've received over 17,000 unique products that were contributed through this type of knowledge tender. So this is just a literal very, very tip of the iceberg of what's the potential of this type of knowledge tenders that can be created, because knowledge gives you that potential of not only saying, yeah, well, I need data and then deal with it all on your own, but rather get the create the tender that's much more tailored to what your needs are. So these 4 incentivization tools, like I said, they're not just an add-on. Think of them more of an extension of what we've been working on so far, and they give new possibilities as to what we can do and unlock just so much more value in terms of how many stakeholders we can really introduce or invite in OriginTrail ecosystem. How can we make this even more welcoming and even more powerful in a way because of the network effects as well, ecosystem that will seek to thrive for years and years going forward. So how does this new stuff really fit? And how is it an extension of what we've been working on so far? I'm pushing it over to Branimir, who's going to take you through some of the technical components that are behind this yeah, share some of the more interesting stuff going forward. So Branimir, I'm muting myself right now.
All right, so perfect. That was a great introduction. Now we will go into how this works, so how it's actually built out, and we will start with actually a very familiar picture. So at least slightly modified. So this is the OriginTrail stack as we know it. It is comprised of 4 different layers. So on the top, we're looking at applications that are working with the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph, getting the necessary knowledge out of it from 2 distinct layers. So the network layer, which enables all this interconnection and really presents the decentralized knowledge network, and the data layer, which is actually the semantic web-enabled data store, which is living on the decentralized network. And finally, the consensus layer, which is built on top of blockchains, which essentially provide the necessary components that the blockchains enable here, particularly the ability to fingerprint data sets and to verify the identity on a particular blockchain, as well as interacting with smart contracts, as we've seen in the previous presentations. So right now, the OriginTrail network operates together with the Ethereum blockchain, the Ethereum mainnet. It's been so ever since it has been launched. And from this a couple of months ago, really, we have started a very great initiative that's called the Starfleet Initiative, which aims to create OriginTrail as the network being a multi-blockchain network. Actually, 2 supported blockchains at the beginning, but very soon the idea is to enable a tri-chain universe where the OriginTrail decentralized network operates with Ethereum, with the Starfleet blockchain, which is a community-operated blockchain, and then finally a Polkadot parachain that is, at least for the beginning, the design of the system is such that it can support multiple blockchains. So having that said, we're moving in a step-by-step fashion, and all of these elements are now going to be part of the consensus layer of OriginTrail. But going back to the tools that have been introduced, Within the consensus layer, we're looking at knowledge tokens and the knowledge wallets as being something that are going to be utilizing the existing infrastructure in the blockchain or consensus layer. Think of it as existing tools being extended with the capabilities of the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph. So that means that you yourself can generate new tokens that represent the knowledge that either you or somebody else has contributed to the network. And then you can utilize the existing crypto infrastructure to actually utilize these tools. But not only utilizing the existing infrastructure, meaning the existing wallets, the existing blockchains, the existing exchanges, because these tokens, be they fungible or non-fungible, which both are actually going to be in the realm of the knowledge token, you can actually go ahead and use all the new exciting tools that are around the blockchain industry, such as things like automated market makers, like, for example, Uniswap. Apart from these tools that are in the realm of the consensus layer, what we're looking at really here is an actually even bigger extension. And this extension actually involves an additional set of services. And these services are actually going to be an additional layer in the stack of OriginTrail, which is called the service layer. These are actually knowledge services, such as the knowledge marketplaces and the knowledge tenders that Tomaž has already introduced. These services are, as tools, going to be available for everyone, not just enterprises, but also anybody in particular, any person that would like to contribute to the knowledge economy, data scientists, or any sort of individuals that might be interested in not only sharing this data in the context of companies sharing supply chain information on products, rather than sharing more information, sharing actually knowledge, which is connecting information to what is already existing in what is in the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph. Additional services also are envisioned for the service layer. So one of the most important ones is liquidity services. So think of it as the ability to enable all of the services in the stack to utilize the underutilized liquidity that is available in the network. So one of the key aspects there, for example, being that when you're running an ODN node, it requires a certain number of tokens in order to be able to join the network, as well as to contribute in the data sharing economy. Well, so far, you would have to run the node and you would have to provide the tokens yourself. Well, given the new service layer and the liquidity services provided, anybody will be able to contribute their tokens to the already existing service providers within the OriginTrail decentralized network to actually put their tokens to work. Apart from the liquidity services, which there are actually more of, the liquidity service of, for example, providing liquidity for knowledge tokens is also something that is going to be part of the OriginTrail knowledge economy. And that meaning providing actual signal towards which data sets with corresponding knowledge tokens are of value. That meaning that we create a specific marketplace along specific knowledge, specific domain of knowledge that can be either, like I said, something of a personal nature, or can be a specific vertical in the supply chain. All of this information is part of the marketplace, the knowledge marketplace, with different characteristics and therefore a different value. And being a liquidity provider is also going to enable to benefit from participating in these marketplaces, as well as it is providing liquidity for, let's say, an automated market maker like Uniswap. Additional services such as gateway services are also going to enable entities that so far that didn't have access to the decentralized realm of the OriginTrail to actually get connected. So instead of just having a node for yourself or set of nodes, highly available set of nodes, for example, for your company or for yourself, you would be able to offer additional services to someone participating in the network. So you could actually, your node could do work for the other nodes. So that is what is considered gateway services, as well as considering access to particular permission networks. We've seen Dominic's presentation where he has shown us that there's a group of service providers that are building networks already for EPCS standards for data exchange. Well, such networks will be able to plug in through the gateway services into the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph, and essentially having a very similar use as the gateways we all know from the general internet infrastructure. And then finally, but not actually very broadly, but we're looking at something called the data to knowledge services. Data to knowledge services are actually there to raise the level from data upwards in the pyramid sense that we've discussed of data, information, knowledge, wisdom pyramid. And these are actually all around us. We are not even probably aware of them all of the time, but this is what's happening on Facebook, on Google. This is all the data crunching that's going on in the backend, all of the transformations, all of the conversions, such as the ones that Dominic has mentioned. Such services will now be possible to be provided by the OriginTrail decentralized network. So think of it as either one or multiple nodes in the network being able to execute a certain set of operations, be that reading a value from a certain number of existing resources on the web, and then agreeing on consensus and publishing that into a smart contract, such as an Oracle application, or additional, for example, conversion, dataset conversion operations, AI-centric operations that would feed the data from the decentralized knowledge graph into specific private AI algorithms. And then finally, also moving these algorithms towards the data. So having the ability to run on a certain proprietary data set, a set of instructions, without having to share this data set to anybody else. So effectively changing the dormancy of this data into something that is more useful rather than just being kept and hidden, as we've seen in John's presentation, where this is actually quite a big of a problem. Well, we can translate this into the ability of making value of the data in situ, in place. So this is actually the new stack of the OriginTrail. And who will be responsible for this stack? Well, basically, when we look at applications and the services which are operating on the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph, we're looking at knowledge providers and knowledge consumers. So basically a marketplace, a two-sided marketplace. And when we look at the ODN node runners, we're currently now seeing an additional set of features that they're going to be able to perform, functionality, all of which is within the service layer. When it comes to the consensus layer, if you've been following the developments around Starfleet, there's going to be also additional operations being performed for Starfleet, which is particularly in the roles of validators. So these validators will actually have an additional incentive also with the same economic primitive, which is the trace token. And then actually the whole stack is where the liquidity providers will be able to contribute their liquidity. So even without running a node or knowing anything about building services, just as a token holder, you will be able to contribute and participate in this stack, and actually in the whole stack. And then finally, we're looking at developers who are obviously responsible and going to be contributing to the stack, particularly in building out these particular services, as well as the applications on top, some of which we've seen during this presentation. So this, in a nutshell, is the new OriginTrail tech stack. And so underlying this whole concept, what this really looks like is that right now we have the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph with the Ethereum mainnet. And then we have knowledge suppliers at this moment, which use Trace to publish and index knowledge to the ODN. So that's been happening for ever since late 2018. And on the other hand, we have OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph service providers, which basically get compensated with the trace token for the operations of the decentralized knowledge graph as we know it today. And very soon, we're looking at additional utilities. So we're looking at the knowledge providers also being able to use trace to create knowledge tokens and to get compensated with trace when offering knowledge tokens on the knowledge marketplace. So essentially providing this dormant knowledge as something available for utilization for a certain compensation. When it comes to the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge providers, the knowledge graph providers, they will get an additional capabilities to get compensated for the transformation services, or the actual service layer functionalities is what now the actual realm of the decentralized knowledge graph providers is also going to be. And then on the other hand, on the other side of the market, we're looking at knowledge consumers, which will both utilize trace to purchase the knowledge tokens that are offered on the marketplace, as well as get access to this knowledge, but also use trace to create these knowledge tenders or really open calls to crowdsource knowledge. One of which we've seen, such as the COVID trusted knowledge repository for medical supplies that we've launched, and that was very successful because we collected a ton of data. And when you look at this is actually happening in the current world within Google and Facebook. They're actually crowdsourcing data by using websites and actually motivating them to structure the website data in a specific fashion, such as with open graph tags and schema.org. This is already happening, and the incentive there is to get something out of Google and Facebook. The problem is that Google and Facebook get much more out of it. The idea here is that we use the same principle and create the ability to get the services and provide the marketplace for the suppliers and consumers of knowledge in order to be exchanging this and keeping the value for themselves. But that's not it, all of it. So basically what we're looking at two new blockchain implementations, Starfleet and Polkadot, which will entail their own consensus providers, and these services will be compensated by Trace and Star Track token, as well as liquidity providers, which just to point again, they will provide liquidity for ODN nodes and split rewards with the ones that are running nodes, as well as providing liquidity for knowledge tokens and get compensated for this with appropriate fees. So all of these now, the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph providers, consensus providers, and liquidity providers are really knowledge service providers. They provide the necessary 4 I's features for the necessary 4 I's to exist. They provide the incentivization through the liquidity and through the services of incentivizing the marketplace, the integrity and interconnectivity and interoperability, all of which are built on top of the decentralized knowledge graph and the underlying consensus protocols such as Ethereum, Polkadot, and Starfleet, which will be launched within the next year. So basically that means putting our trace to work means optimizing knowledge publishing. We get new incentivization tools for knowledge. We are going to see ODN nodes running on Starfleet and Ethereum at the same time. Liquidity for ODN nodes is something that you can do with your trace as well. You can provide liquidity for them to do their job. And then finally, provide liquidity for knowledge tokens, where this knowledge is something that by definition, by assumption and definition is of value. So you can actually harness part of this value by providing signal that this knowledge is actually something that is very useful. It is my pleasure to announce that actually we are going to start boarding to this next phase of the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge economy through the website that you're seeing on the link, which essentially is going to get the first group of tracers on board with this new technology stack. And spaces are limited for a reason, and I will quickly explain what this reason is. before you go to the website, please hear me out. So launching this new knowledge economy in the spirit of inclusiveness, neutrality, and usability together is going to entail a couple of phases. So the first phase is really getting into the deciding you want to participate and getting on board through the preparation period, which we expect to last until the end of January. This boarding period is going to be done on our website, and basically you can register there and you can apply for something that is about to come. And what's about to come? Well, basically what we're launching is the actual Starfleet project. So in order to launch the knowledge economy, there's going to be a period of staking and transitioning the first settlers from the Ethereum mainnet towards the new Starfleet blockchain. And that's going to happen through a smart contract on Ethereum. So what we will be launching is a staking campaign with the aim to launch the OriginTrail knowledge economy. And this is going to be the boarding period, which lasts for 4 weeks, or until the maximum goal, which is 50 million trace, is reached. Now, what happens next? Then we have a period which we call the Starfleet launch window. This launch window is basically going to be a period where all the tokens are locked on the Ethereum mainnet, and there is no movement between the chains yet, and Starfleet chain is going to be launched. So it's going to be launched with the amounts of stake tokens that have been deposited in the staking smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain. Once it's launched, anybody who has a node and who has staked for the Starfleet blockchain will be able to run a dual chain node and therefore participate both in the already existing Ethereum-based OriginTrail network, but also the extended Starfleet-based economy through the same network, yet with additional things happening, additional jobs being on the Starfleet network, and all of the additional parts of this knowledge economy that's going to be happening on Starfleet. Now, this is going to last for a while. And for a while, it's not going to be a two-way communication. Think of it as the first settlers going to Mars with SpaceX. It's not going to be a highway set between Mars and Earth immediately. It's going to take a bit of time that everybody can take a weekly round trip back from Mars to Earth. But whoever gets to Mars first actually gets to be in advantage, gets to be first and do whatever is possible and whatever can be done on Mars and can be utilized from that place. And that's, you should think of that way for Starfleet. Starfleet is going to be something that you can board, you can join, absolutely anybody can join during the boarding period. And then for a while, we're going to be running the OriginTrail decentralized network on 2 chains without the actual capability of moving tokens between chains. And then finally, we're looking at the bridge launch window, where we expect the bridge to be launched and these movements of tokens will actually be enabled. So the movements from star trace to trace and back. And this bridge is something that is also part of the Starfleet, the whole Starfleet initiative, which is actively being worked on together with the Parity team through the Substrate Builders program. So in a nutshell, to reiterate the whole process, we will be running a preparation period. Everybody has the ability to contribute and to join and onboard the Starfleet with their own stake. And staking trace will then enable the one-way trip for a while to the Starfleet, the Mars, in order to utilize the resources of this new part of the economy, finally launching in full effect when the bridge is launched during the bridge launch window. Now, there's going to be more details, obviously, explained on this. Obviously, the smart contract auditing is part of it in the boarding phase, as well as the corresponding request for comments, actually the OT RFC 10, which is going to be available from today. So anybody can actually look into it, provide feedback, and provide even security research if possible. And then finally, once all this is completed around the end of January, we're looking at the event where we will start onboarding the new OriginTrail knowledge economy to Starfleet. So without further ado, I invite you to launch the new OriginTrail knowledge economy with us together. Visit the boarding.origintrail.io website, register, and be the first to actually build out the global first knowledge economy, which is neutral, inclusive, and usable. Having that said, I am closing my presentation and asking anybody else who would like to join in to contribute.
Thanks, Branimir, for running us through. I think I got the honors to wrap it up today. So the Liftoff event. I guess starting at the beginning, thanks to all the guest speakers that took their time out of their busy schedules to come and to explain how OriginTrail technologies are impacting not just their organizations, but their industries, and how really, not even just today, but also in the future, they see the development of, or the impact of these type of technologies to really have in their respective fields. I think we had a couple of really great conversations, a couple of great presentations done. We were able to see some demos, which is always exciting, and it's great to see this tangible value being delivered. Of course, with the Liftoff event and the knowledge economy launch, it's something that's new. It's been a lot of information packed in there. Brana, yeah, you have to stop sharing the screen. So there's been quite a lot of information packed in there, which is why we're also going to be doing an Ask Me Anything, or the monthly office hours with Guinness Stash, yours truly. That's going to happen over the weekend. I believe it's Sunday. And I see Anna also putting some of the details into the chat. So as usual, you'll be able to submit your questions, and I'm sure this one's going to be quite an interesting discussion, especially because of a lot of new potential that's being opened up with the developments happening. So thank you again all for taking the time out to join us. I hope you are enjoying this as much as we have. And as I'm being told, we're also about to do a short appearance on Amos's stream, which is, I guess, live somewhere. So we'll be there for a couple of minutes, but just to see the first burning questions. But then, of course, for all of your things that take a little bit more time than a couple of minutes, of course, do submit your questions with the AMA. Thanks again to everyone. Wish you all a great day ahead or a beautiful night, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.